Most people believe others can read them, that when they're nervous, people notice, that when they're angry, people sense it, that when they walk into a room carrying something heavy inside, the whole room feels it too. But psychology reveals something quietly extraordinary. Most of the time, they can't. Think about the last time you walked into a social situation and felt your pulse quicken. Maybe it was a meeting where you didn't know the answer. A conversation where you said something and immediately second-guessed it. A moment where you felt your face flush. Your thoughts scatter, your confidence quietly collapse. And in that moment, you were certain, absolutely certain, that everyone around you saw it, that your discomfort was written across your face like a headline. This experience is so universal that most people never stop to question it. They simply accept it as fact. I feel it, therefore others see it. But this assumption, this invisible, deeply human assumption, is the foundation of a powerful psychological illusion. It is called the illusion of transparency. And once you understand it, you will never move through a room the same way again. The study of human perception is not new. Long before modern psychology gave it a name, the world's most strategic minds were already navigating it. Sun Tzu understood that victory is often decided not by strength, but by perceived strength. He wrote that the greatest warrior appears calm when he is calculating and certain when he is uncertain. Machiavelli observed that men judge almost entirely by appearances. In The Prince, he wrote, everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. And Robert Greene, drawing on centuries of strategic behavior, noted that those who control how they are perceived hold a silent, lasting power over those who simply react. These thinkers arrived at the same conclusion across centuries and cultures. Perception is not reality. Perception is power. In the next few minutes, you will understand the psychological illusion that makes people believe their internal experience is visible to everyone around them. Why this illusion quietly drains confidence and keeps people smaller than they need to be. How understanding the gap between what you feel and what others see creates a foundation for composure, clarity, and quiet psychological advantage. Stay with this, because what you are about to learn doesn't just change how you see yourself. It changes how you understand everyone. In 1998, psychologists Thomas Gilovich, Victoria Medvec, and Kenneth Savitsky published a landmark study. They placed individuals in stressful social situations and asked them to estimate how much of their internal anxiety was visible to observers. The participants consistently overestimated how much others could detect. Dramatically so. The observers, they noticed far less than anyone imagined. This is the illusion of transparency, the systematic tendency to believe that your internal emotional state leaks outward more than it actually does. But think of it like this. You are watching a film projected on a screen. From inside the projection booth, the light feels blinding, overwhelming, impossible to miss. But from the audience, they see only the image, clean, composed, controlled. You are always closer to your own feelings than anyone else will ever be. And that distance between what you feel and what others perceive is far wider than you have been taught to believe. There is a companion illusion worth understanding here. Psychologists call it the spotlight effect, the belief that you are being observed, analyzed, and remembered far more than you actually are. You stumble over your words in a presentation. Meanwhile, the people who witnessed it have already moved on completely because they were too occupied with their own spotlight to spend time watching yours. Machiavelli understood this intuitively. He observed that people are consumed by their own ambitions, fears, and desires. They are not cataloging your vulnerabilities. They are managing their own. The mindset shift here is subtle but profound. You are not being watched as carefully as you think, and neither is anyone else. But here is where it gets genuinely interesting, because the most striking thing about the illusion of transparency is not what it hides. It is what it reveals about how little most people are actually paying attention. The world is full of individuals, walking through their lives convinced they are being scrutinized, while the people around them are equally convinced of the same thing. Everyone is performing for an audience that is not watching. Think about what that means. The anxiety you have been carrying, the self-consciousness, the careful management of how you appear, much of it has been directed at an audience that was never as present as you believed. And the person who understands this dynamic holds something rare. They can move freely in spaces where others are frozen. Understanding perception also means understanding what you choose to signal. Sun Tzu wrote about the strategic use of stillness. The general who is unreadable is unpredictable, and the unpredictable opponent holds an invisible advantage. Everyday life and emotional reactivity is a form of transparency. When you react visibly to provocation, frustration, anxiety, defensiveness, you hand others a map to your interior world. They learn what moves you, what unsettles you, what you need. But when you cultivate stillness, you become harder to read, not cold, not distant, simply composed. Consider the negotiator who remains calm when offered an insulting figure, the colleague who doesn't visibly react when undermined in a meeting, the leader who listens without signaling doubt. These are not acts of suppression. They are acts of discipline. The mindset shift. Stillness is not emptiness. It is information withheld. Here is another layer worth examining. Much of what people believe they see in you is actually a reflection of themselves. Psychology calls this projection, the unconscious tendency to attribute your own internal states to others. When someone assumes you are angry, they may be working from the residue of their own unresolved anger. When someone reads nervousness into your silence, they may be narrating their own discomfort. Robert Greene, in the 48 Laws of Power, observed that most people interpret the world through the lens of their own fears and desires. They do not see you clearly. They see a version of themselves projected onto you. This means something important. The way others perceive you reveals less about you than it reveals about them. And once you understand that, criticism loses some of its weight. Judgment loses some of its sting. You stop defending yourself from interpretations that were never really about you. These psychological truths are not modern discoveries dressed in academic language. They are ancient strategic principles confirmed by science. Machiavelli saw that the prince who controlled perception shaped political reality. Sun Tzu saw that the commander who managed emotional signals won battles before they were fought. Greene saw that those who understand how observation works navigate social dynamics with quiet authority. The common thread across all three, self-mastery, is not about controlling how others see you. It is about understanding that you have far more control than you were led to believe. Most people live unconsciously inside the illusion of transparency, certain their anxiety is exposed, certain their doubts are visible, certain they are being read completely. And because they believe this, they perform. They over-explain, they over-apologize. They shrink. A person who understands the illusion does the opposite. They move calmly. They speak they speak less. They observe more. So what changes when you absorb this fully? First, you stop performing for imaginary observers. You recognize that the audience you have been anxious about is largely occupied with their own internal theater. Second, you begin to notice others' transparency. Because once you understand the illusion, you start to see when others are unconsciously broadcasting their emotions, their insecurities, their motives. You become a more precise observer of human behavior. Third, you develop the discipline of stillness. You learn that pausing before reacting, speaking less in tension, and allowing silence to do work. These are not passive acts. They're strategic ones. The quiet person in the room who watches carefully and speaks with precision is not absent. They are the most present person there. Most people move through their lives in the idea of prison. The bars are made of assumptions, that others see everything, that judgment is constant, that their internal world is always visible. But the truth is simpler and far more liberating than that. Where you are not as transparent as you fear. Others are not as perceptive as you imagine. And in that gap, in that quiet, overlooked space between what you feel and what the world actually sees, lives an extraordinary opportunity to compose yourself, to observe clearly, to move with intention rather than anxiety. Machiavelli wrote that appearances are the currency of power. Sun Tzu taught that composure is the beginning of strategy. And psychology confirms what they always understood. The person who masters perception, both their own and others, holds a quiet, lasting advantage over those who never stop to notice. Most people will never learn this. You just did. If this changed the way you see yourself and the people around you, subscribe for more insights into psychology, philosophy, and the hidden dynamics of human behavior. And drop one word in the comments below. The word that describes the person you become when you stop performing for an audience that isn't watching. One word, comment it below.